Hello and welcome to the channel, my friends. It's Thunderbob here, and tonight we are going to talk about a franchise that is very close to my heart. Resident Evil. This is a series that has basically been there from my earliest gaming days. A series that has grown with me over the years, reinventing itself with each new release and with each new generation. Of all of the game series I have enjoyed over the decades, Resident Evil has the most impressive release cadence, while also maintaining a very high level of quality, with just a few missteps over the years. I've been playing these games at release for nearly 30 years now, but I've come to realize that while I've replayed a few of the games many times, like Resident Evil 4, there are a few that I've not played since that original release date many years ago, and there are at least 2 mainline games that I never actually completed. So my plan is to replay every mainline release in the series, including all of the numbered titles and the remakes. And I'm going to throw in Code Veronica and Revelations 1 and 2, even though it's debatable if those are mainline games. I'm going to play through the games in release order, and then put together a review and retrospective for each game individually. I intend to contrast my memories and feelings playing these games originally, years and decades ago, against how the games hold up today. I'm going to play through these games on the PC where available, and for the older titles with graphical mods to try to play these in the best possible light today. When I'm done with the entire series, I want to do a final video with my overall thoughts on the series and a ranking of all of the games. And a warning here, there will be some spoilers, but let's go ahead and get started. Today we will be discussing Resident Evil 4. And we've finally made it to the last and most recent Resident Evil game that has been released, at least until Requiem comes out a little bit down the road, and I will definitely cover that game when it comes out. But in the meantime, let's talk about Resident Evil 4 Remake. I have long considered the original Resident Evil 4 one of the best games of all time, and I've played it so many times over the years. I've played it at release on GameCube, on Wii, on the PC, in virtual reality, and most recently the Project HD mod on PC. And it is really a special game for me, and also for gaming in general. It really evolved the Resident Evil formula with more action-focused experience that still respected the spirit of those older games. It was also the game that pushed forward the genre, and I believe inspired many games that were released after, like Dead Space and Gears of War, and a ton of other third-person action horror games. So when the remake was announced, I was excited, but also very worried that there was no way it could hold up to my high expectations based on the original game. I played the remake at release, and I have a few videos on the channel with my initial impressions, which were all very positive. I didn't do a full review at the time, but replaying it today, 2 years after release, I absolutely love the remake. This is how you remake a video game. It takes the best parts of the original and amplifies them, while improving the few small issues of the original. And it really respects the classic Resident Evil formula by making exploration, horror, and resource management even more important than before. And I'm playing the remake today on my PC that's a couple years old at this point. I'm running a 3080 and a 10700K. And the game, it looks absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, performance can be a bit rough at times if you max everything out and you try to utilize ray tracing. I ended up disabling ray tracing, and I found a mod that let me enable DLSS, and I maintained a 60 FPS the majority of the game. There were a couple of moments actually where it seemed to bug out a little bit, and I had to restart. I think it's an issue with the 10 gigabyte limit on my video card, and basically like that fills up, and then the game starts to crap out. It doesn't happen very often, and maybe once or twice I had to restart while I was playing. With that said, the game does look incredible and has so much atmosphere. The environmental effects like fog, puddles, the smoke, and the wet surfaces add so much to the mood. The character models all look amazing and are well animated, and the areas you visit in the game are mostly taken from the original, but have been expanded and built out so much that they feel so much more realistic while still being recognizable. Alright, now let's talk about the story and the structure of the game. This game begins, like the original, with Leon Kennedy being sent into a fictional Spanish village to rescue the president's kidnapped daughter. Leon explores the village, and within a few minutes, he is attacked by crazed villagers named Ganados. The first major fight in the village sets the stage for what is to come, with dozens of infected and a chainsaw-wielding maniac chasing you until a bell rings and everyone leaves as if in a trance. Then we get one of the best title cards in the series. From here you visit several different areas of the village, including a farm, a lakeside fishing settlement, a church, and a ton of other random buildings. Most of these are ripped right out of the original, but expanded in interesting ways. Leon also meets Mendez, who infects him with the Las Plagas parasite, and he is the leader of the village. Leon fights a giant fish monster known as the Del Lago, like the original, but there's an expanded section where you explore by boat a few different locations filled with treasures. And on the way back to the church, Leon has his first encounter with El Gigante. With the help of his dog, he does take him down. And during this time, you're introduced to Luis, an ex-Umbrella scientist and a total ladies' man, whose role feels quite expanded in the remake versus the original. You save Ashley and she tags along with you for most of the game, and you eventually fight the village elder Mendez before traveling to the castle. And in the castle, Leon meets Ramon Salazar, the most flamboyant Resident Evil villain in the series, though he just feels a smidge toned down from the original game. You travel through the outer battlements of the castle, avoiding catapults, and you use a cannon to blow open a door. You jump over chandeliers, and you go into the basement, and you fight these really crazy blind Garrador enemies. You lose Ashley, and you find her again multiple times. You briefly play as Ashley in a section that has you running for your life, mostly defenseless, from these suits of armor infected with the Las Plagas, until she saves Leon in an inverse of the original game. And as you progress, Leon and Ashley get sicker with the Las Plagas infection. Luis provides some medicine that will slow the progress and points you toward a cure. Leon travels through the destroyed ballroom and fights a bunch of bugs, and then confronts Salazar, only to get dropped down into an underground area. There, Leon and Luis team up and ride a minecart that is totally ridiculous, and I think an improvement on the original. And just as you and Luis appear to be becoming best buds, Krauser shows up and kills him, and you have a knife fight until Ada intervenes. And Leon gets a rematch against Salazar, just as Ashley is once again kidnapped, this time by Krauser. The Salazar fight feels a bit more dynamic than the original, as he can move around the battlefield, but he still goes down pretty fast to a few magnum shots. And then Ada and Leon travel to an island together before she bails, like usual. Leon explores the island, which was my least favorite part of the original game, but it has been improved somewhat. It's a bit shorter and more focused, and the last few areas really feel like a gauntlet meant to test everything you've learned throughout the game and really put your abilities to the test. You also fight the regenerators that are just as terrifying as the original, except they feel a bit faster, and now they really leap across the screen at you. Before long, you fight Krauser, then plenty more lengthy combat sections, now with the help of a helicopter pilot, before he tragically gets killed. Leon finally saves Ashley again, with the help of Ada, who is captured. Then you both finally get cured of the Las Plagas. There's a final showdown with Lord Sadler, who of course transforms into a huge bioweapon, and after taking him down with a rocket launcher, you escape by jet ski and ride off into the sunset with Ashley. And overall, I like the story told in the remake. Some of the characters are expanded in smart ways, like Luis and Krauser. I love that Luis gets to live longer, has a bit of a team-up in the mine section with Leon. Also, introducing Krauser earlier feels like a good move for the plot, as he doesn't just appear in the final act, You know, and you're kind of like, who the hell is this guy? He has this history with Leon. In the original game, he just seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. Here they introduce him a lot earlier and give him a bit more characterization. The game also has a much stronger horror focus and like this real foreboding atmosphere at times. The cult aspects are also amplified here with a ton of creepy set pieces to explore. The order of things are a bit different at times, but it hits all the major points of the original, and what has changed is largely an improvement in my mind. Perhaps my only negative is I had grown attached to the old Ada voice actresses that they had used before, and I feel like the new one doesn't quite hit the mark for me.
Excellent.
It's not terrible, but it stood out among the rest of the cast, which I felt was really well done.
What are you planning to do with this?
Now let's talk about gameplay. The gameplay feels similar to the original, except everything feels a bit weightier, and the character has more momentum to his movement. It feels like there are more frames of animation that makes everything look better. It doesn't necessarily make it play better, though. It takes a bit of an adjustment, as the original feels a bit snappier and arcade-like, while the remake feels a bit slower paced. It makes the fights feel more tense, as you need to play a bit more deliberately and cautiously at times, where the original felt a bit more of a run-and-gun style. You do get a few moves, like being able to block and perform stealth kills with your knife, but now the knife will break down over time and has to be repaired. These elements can mostly be ignored, but it does add a few gameplay options to the old formula. Ashley is also a lot smarter in the remake and is less likely to randomly die or get in the way unless you accidentally shoot her, and then she will die almost instantly. The remake also mostly removes the QTE events from the original game, which was one of the few complaints I had in my review. The original game had just a ton of really intrusive and unnecessary QTE moments. The remake has just a couple, and most of them are like gameplay related, like dodging during a boss fight, that sort of thing, and they're not as intrusive, they're not as frequent, and I think that's a marked improvement over the original. The game world feels much more fleshed out in the remake. Many of the areas feel larger, with more optional side content and more reasons to explore and backtrack. And there are just tons of secret treasures and resources spread around the game world, and it really encourages you to search every corner. The added merchant quests add to this and give you kind of a checklist to utilize when searching for these secrets, which is much more fleshed out than in the original. The game world also feels perfectly constructed, like everything fits together logically, and even when you pull up the map, you can see both in a gameplay sense, but also just in like a logical way how the world fits together in a realistic manner, like this section connects to that section, and you look at your map, and it's great. I love the world and how it's all built out in this game. The game's also way scarier now. Nearly every area has been made more atmospheric and is covered with effects like smoke, fog, rain. There are areas that are nearly completely dark, like the dungeons that you have to navigate by flashlight. And even the parasites popping out of the basic Ganado's mouth feels much more terrifying and threatening this time around. There are also a ton of little changes that I appreciate. Like when you sell your weapon, you get most of the resources back, even when the weapon's upgraded. In the original, I would hold off on upgrading until I unlocked certain weapons, and it really made the first few chapters a slog, but here you can upgrade as you go, sell your weapon, get most of those resources, and keep progressing. Now, there's no reason to avoid upgrading right away, as you can sell your weapon and get most of that money back. Though, now when you upgrade ammo capacity, it does not refill your weapon. I guess it balances certain weapons, but I really liked the kind of strategy it added to the upgrade system. Even the smaller systems, like combining treasure pieces, feels more interactive, getting bonuses depending on the type of gems that you insert. The game also introduces using the spinels as another currency to buy special items like the exclusive upgrade tickets, which goes a long way to giving you options to customize your personal playthrough and playstyle. And there are different cases you can buy that give you small bonuses to finding specific types of ammo or resources, and charms that you unlock in the shooting gallery that augment things, allowing you to really customize your playstyle the way you want. And there are a few cut elements here, like the U3 fight, the cable car segment, the silly laser room taken from the movie. The omission of these elements is sad, but the game really feels overstuffed already, and is generally as long, if not longer, than the original. Other areas feel a bit shorter, or at least better designed, like the island, and I think that's a welcome change, as I always felt like that was one of the weaker sections that just went on a little bit too long. And a few areas are expanded, like traveling around by boat in the village, that make up for the lost content. And this game does have just a ton of replayability. You have a fleshed out mercenaries mode, which is one of the best in the series. There's a second campaign that shows you the game from Ada's perspective. The New Game Plus mode is also well executed here, and it's so much fun to go back through again with your full arsenal from the very beginning and have an opportunity to finish upgrading and unlocking all the items. And overall, the game feels more difficult than the original. The encounters, especially towards the end, get absolutely ridiculous with the number of enemies and the variety sent at you. Nearly every enemy type has returned, but in most cases, they've been made more dangerous or more terrifying. Many of the enemies are more aggressive, like the Regenerators, or even just the normal Ganados. They rush at you faster and more frequently. And this game has some of the best action set pieces in the series, and really just in gaming in general. They build and get more and more intense, while still maintaining the scares and the terrifying atmosphere. And like the original, I think the gameplay here is pretty immaculate, and is perhaps the most compelling part of the game for me. Which is a bit of a conundrum, as the gameplay in the original and the remake most diverge from the classic Resident Evil formula. I think the game retains enough horror and resource management and exploration to not completely spill over just into basic action game territory like Resident Evil 6, but this is still the part of the series that started that downward trend. I think the remake actually improves this overall by making the combat more difficult and the encounters even more daunting. It makes you really count your shots and explore the world for resources. So final thoughts. This is one of my favorite games of all time. It excels in nearly every aspect, from the graphics and art to the gameplay and story. It takes what the original did and improves it and refines it, and adds a bit of the classic Resident Evil sauce to everything. And I love both the original Resident Evil 4 and the remake, and after replaying both of these games back to back, I believe there's value in playing both of these games today. The original has a bit more focus on action and can be less serious, almost silly, while the remake pushes more into the horror and atmosphere, while making the action more meaningful and the story more serious. I'm sure that I will be playing both of these games for years to come, and I really recommend these games to both Resident Evil fans and gamers in general. These are some of the best gaming experiences I've had in my life, and I've played a lot of games, so if you are curious about the Resident Evil series, this is certainly a good starting point. You don't need a lot of knowledge on the previous games, and they're just absolutely a blast to play today. So I'm going to end the video there, and with this video, I've now replayed the entire mainline Resident Evil series, and my next video will be my final thoughts and ranking of the entire series, which should be up in the next couple of weeks. I do want to thank you again for watching, and just have a great night, everybody.